Welcome to The Interchange. I'm Latife Hayson. For the past 25 years, I was living in Napa Valley, California, consulting and representing buyers and sellers of wineries, vineyards, and luxury estates. My clients were the founders of publicly listed companies, tech giants, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists, all living their best lives and many changing up the world before our eyes. On The Interchange, I take a deep dive into their personal stories and many other fascinating people I have met from around the world.
If we all suddenly are in driverless electric networked cars, maybe it can all be coordinated such that we don't have as much traffic.
We talk cutting-edge technology, financial intelligence, leadership, climate change, the power of philanthropy, passion, and much more. But that's not all. As a patron of the world-renowned Festival Napa Valley, I chat with internationally renowned artists and emerging talent who grace the festival stage during the 10 best days of summer each year.
It's like being in Europe and going out to a performance every day and every night in the most beautiful settings and incredible food and wine. You really do feel like you're in Europe.
So tune in for each episode, because The Interchange is where inspiration meets innovation. Hello everybody, today it is my great honour to introduce you to Dr. Frank Naeymi-Rad, co-founder of IMO, Intelligent Medical Objects. He turned his doctoral research into a business that has become the premier terminology vendor for electronic health records, capturing and preserving physicians' clinical intent at the point of care. IMO interface terminology is now used by about 85% of all clinicians in English-speaking countries. He is also the investor and executive chairman of Leap of Faith Technologies. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Frank Naeymi-Rad.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, my friend. It's so nice for you to be here with us. I appreciate you taking the time. I thought that we would start by talking about when you first arrived in the United States, why you came here, and how you got on your feet.
Well, you know, I came from a privileged family, and my two brothers here in Illinois, one in Bradley University and one in Monmouth College, both were in private schools. And my dad really wanted me to go to military because nobody in the family went to military. My dad was a general in the Shah's Air Force. And so I convinced him to send me to US, but he told me that he would only give me $100 a month. So I come here going to the junior college, but even the junior college out-of-state tuition was $540 per semester. So I was already in red. And so I started the junior college in Canton College in Canton, Illinois. And I have to tell you, before I came to US, I always viewed the fact that in US, you can, if you work hard, you get rewarded. Mm-hmm. And I just loved that exercise. And I remember I was really, really struggling, and I didn't want to ask my dad for any money. Actually, for Tuesday, I remember Tuesday morning, I used to mop the floor of this restaurant next to the campus to get the food, just the food for good food, because I was eating eggs and beans. That was my food, because that was the cheapest thing at that time. Yeah. And I got a job at a restaurant that this person had to be a dishwasher and a cook for 11 to 7 in the morning. At the same time, one of the reasons I wanted to come to US was my brother Brad, who was at Monmouth College, was part of the fraternity called Theta Chi. And I really loved the concept of fraternity brotherhood. So junior college actually had fraternities, and the fraternity that I joined was Sigma Eta Nu. So when I got the job from the person in the restaurant to be a cook at night from 11 to 7, was a really blessing, because at that time, at nighttime, they would take the pledges and they dump them in the farms to part of the pledge factors of being a fraternity in the U.S. And I would tell you that two things happened to me. First, working at that restaurant 11 to 7, at nighttime after about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, the clubs closed and the jukebox played Motown music. And in the morning, it was really all the workers were coming. So around 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, everybody would play, country music, And so I just kind of learned about the culture there. And then my brotherhood and activity with the fraternity was genuinely great. I really learned a lot from my pledge brothers. And this is really a 68. And this is during the Vietnam War. And many of my pledge brothers actually were drafted. And I don't know, there was a lot of brotherhood there that came about. And then the beautiful part about it was that I was able to, one of my pledge brother's father was working in Monmouth. I started working in Monmouth, Illinois, and I worked, I finally got a job at Kroger's when I was in Canton, and I transferred that to Monmouth for summer, working at Kroger's, and I worked for the water department. I painted all the fire hydrant in Monmouth, Illinois, small city. And but that was a summer of where I actually, with the money that I made, I bought my first car, which was a Ford Fairlane. And
you were making money.
Yes, I was making money. In the summer, it was kind of nice.
That's great.
And I remember me and my friends, not with my car, with one of the another friend of ours, we decided to take a trip to Woodstock. And we drove, but then the line was too long. By the time we get to close to New York, we decided to go to Florida and come back. But the journey was great. I knew always that if I needed money, I could put my head down and work hard. And you can always find a job if you really want to in the United States. And probably was the best time of my life. And, just doing that, here's to Brother Frank and Brother Frank, drink chug-a-luck for fraternities. When I felt that I was part of this family. And I became really believed in this country, and I believed in really the values that was embedded even at the farm level in this country. So that's my journey and start of my life.
Isn't it interesting? You see, all my life I've seen people who come from other countries. I mean, I've been one of them, I suppose you could say. But you see people from other countries that come actually with nothing. And they're so grateful to be here that they study and they work like you did. You did whatever it took because you were so grateful to be here. And I look at all the Mexicans, how they come here, they have their children, and their children are highly educated because they see their parents working, women cleaning houses and the fathers working outside in the vineyards, really working very hard. And the kids, they do it all for their children to give them a better life. So the children actually study and are so grateful to be here, sometimes more so than those of us that are born here, right? Why did you decide to get into the medical industry, or how did you make your way?
Well, in 1970, I went from junior college to Illinois State University, and I met my wife, Teresa, in fall of 70 in this dormitory. That was the first co-ed dormitory in the state of Illinois. Was developed for what's called International House, and so I met her there. And when I met her, I remember. There was one of the houses in a Waterson Tower in Illinois. Van Buren was the International House, and interesting enough, when you walk into the Waterson Tower, there was a piano there, and this gorgeous young lady was playing piano. I mean, she was such a good pianist. And
Teresa?
Teresa.
Oh,
yes,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I kept seeing this guy just standing next to her. I got jealous, from the first sight, I fell in love with her, and then later on, I found out, well, she was in my International House, and I met her there. And then when I met her, she just lost her brother to leukemia. And at this time, she was already junior, even we're the same age, but she was ahead of me, and I was struggling through junior college and transferring and working. And so she wanted to be a doctor, but she was an art major at that time. And I was just so amazed about the journey of becoming a physician. And she already identified what she had to do to become a doctor, what all the things that she had to study. And that was the start of my introduction to the healthcare field. And then, unfortunately for Teresa, I was always an entrepreneur. My roommates from junior college who came to Illinois State, they started a boutique in, it's called Omega in the state of Illinois. I started working with them. So I was keep doing this business all the time, in and out. And finally, after Arab oil embargo, we both decided that we were going to go after education. And by then, she already had two bachelor's degree waiting for me to get my bachelor degree. And we both got accepted to University of Illinois, but we couldn't get a scholarship. And then we went to SIU Carbondale. At that time, I finished my bachelor's in math, and she basically started her master's in physiology. And so that's how we kind of, my dream was her, because I felt that she wants to be a doctor. So after I started going back to school, most of our attention was paid in to make sure she was prepared to apply to the medical school. And in 1980, she finally applied and got accepted. So that's when I actually moved with her to Chicago Medical School, because I didn't want to lose her. I mean, the female doctors were very valuable.
And then you had children. How long after that?
We had children all in medical school. We were together for 10 years, from 70 to 80 when she got accepted to medical school. She applied to medical school. Yeah. And she wanted to have the kids. So we had the first one in the first year and second one in her third year, or we ended up third year. And it was an amazing journey, because I was working in medical school and also playing a part-time husband.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. So tell us about your degrees. How many have you got?
Well, I mean, I got my bachelor's degree in mathematics from ISU in teaching mathematics, and then I got my master's in computer science from SIU Carbondale. My PhD didn't really come about because when Teresa got to medical school, I was focusing. I was teaching at medical school computers, and also I was running the IT department at medical school. But interesting enough, when Teresa was in residency, she brought one of the attending to our house. And at this time, my son was a year and a half, my daughter was 3.5 years old, and this attending surgeon had 2 boys, and her husband was also took a role of husband, and I was technically a husband at that time. So,
women were going to work and the men were husbands. I love it.
So we were kind of bonding. So we were sitting there, and I'm making this Persian make this rice, which is what we call tadig. Make it like almost like a cake. So I had this rice with tadig in my hand, with my apron on, coming out of the kitchen, and then this attending was talking to Teresa. She said, "Teresa, you won't believe what I did." I said, "What did you do?" Well, I took the boys to the hospital, and then they saw all these doctors with a white coat, and they said, "Mom, can boys become a doctor too?" so right there, I started looking at my son, I looked at my daughter, I said, "I better get my PhD." So that's how. So being at the medical school and working I started taking classes at night. Yeah. And it took me about 6 years. I got my PhD from IIT while I was working. And most of my research was focused on healthcare-related information and terminology for point-of-care decision-making and documentation of electronic medical record. And that became basically my company.
And that's where you actually started your company when you were in college.
When I was working at medical school and finished my PhD, and started computerizing a couple of sites. I was teaching a course in medical artificial intelligence, senior elective. I was teaching, at that time was chairman of the Department of Medicine, Dr. David Trace, who became my co-founder of IMO. He and I started computerizing a course where doctors agree. The doctors really, what happens when at that time, the medical training was you go basic science 2 years, and then you go to the clinical training the last 2 years. So that basic science, there's a course called Introduction to Clinical Medicine, and where they learn how to do history and physical documentations. And we decided to computerize that class, and we computerized it with Apple, I remember at that time. And then I took that data and I took the medical artificial intelligence course, and I said, okay, if you collect the data, it can be then feed it there for decision making. And then I compared, Teresa was rotating at Cook County Hospital. We computerized the registration at the emergency department at Cook County Hospital, and then we started to put that program there where students did history and physical, and then they did basically went to this expert system, did differential diagnosis of these expert systems, and then they took the result and then did a literature search, and after they compared their result with attendings. It was a great training for them because they were really looking at a real patient. And that's when this company Glaxo, at that time we used to call Glaxo Wellcome, but now it's GlaxoSmithKline. They saw what we were doing. They told me this is an electronic medical record. I said, no, this is just a history physical writer connecting to the expert system and doing literature search for a patient. This has nothing to do, it's more for training. I said, no, it's an electronic medical record. And they put a whole bunch of money on the table. I said, yes.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first company that I sold. And then I started Intelligent Medical Objects after that.
Okay. And at what point did you get your MBA?
I got my MBA, be honest with you, after they say after I went to dark side, meaning when I sold my company and when I decided to start IMO, I left medical school and decided to help Glaxo Wellcome commercialize, at that time, and now GlaxoSmithKline, to commercialize the product. And when I left, initially I had some funding, but I felt that I really needed to understand business. So I started doing my master's and MBA program at Lake Forest College, Lake Forest Graduate School, and I finished my master's around 1996, 97.
But so before Glaxo put money on the table to help invest, how did you support the business?
The business was owned by medical school. It was a part of the medical school. Actually, I had to, before selling it to Glaxo Wellcome, GlaxoSmithKline, I had to create a clean room in my basement to make sure that anything that developed from that point on was clean, so the ownership was clear. Majority of funding went to medical school. And actually, I had two of my students who were working with me. These are medical students who actually worked on the product with me when we were commercializing. And actually, two of them became actually millionaire. I mean, not millionaire, but they made a significant amount of money. The amount of money that I made was not that significant, but one most important part was both me and Teresa made ourselves through the school with a lot of loans. I mean, we had at that time, I believe, $750,000 just a student loan. At that time was a HEAL loan at 18%. And then we had additional loan. And the first check that I wrote was paying all of our loan off. So that
when you got the money from Glaxo?
Yeah.
$750,000, even back then.
And 18% interest, because this is during the time of interest.
80s, right?
80s.
80s.
Yes.
I remember that in real estate. I went into escrow, as you would call it here, into contract at 12.5. By the time we closed, it was 18.5. And I know everyone's complaining now, but oh my God, do you remember? So you had that much debt with that, and that was the interest rate.
But the interest is compounding. Yeah, very bad.
Compounding, I'll say.
Tell me about it. It's like crazy.
Incredible, yeah. So tell me, what is the mission? Your kids still work there. We'll get to that in a minute. What is the mission of IMO?
So mission of IMO, what happened is that after I helped Glaxo Wellcome with the electronic medical record, which later on became Allscript Professional and was used for ambulatory care physicians. Mm-hmm. One of the success story was, most of the electronic records in the 80s were billing systems. And for them to become medical record, they had to have the physician speak. They had to be able to communicate with physician. The billing codes are not physician speak. This is for reimbursement. So what I did, because of my research, and my chapter 1 to chapter 4 was building the feature dictionary, building the dictionary for physician speak to create rules and for decision support. And so that success story of actually building the dictionaries that I created there, it was basically became foundations of the work that IMO had. So IMO, in addition to the consulting, but we also maintained these dictionaries. And these dictionaries were used to map to the billing codes, as well as to map to so-called data for data analysis. Because Glaxo Wellcome in at that time bought a company called Welcome, and then they were challenged by another company, I believe it's SmithKline, to saying that if you administer during the HIV pandemic, if you administered medication from their SmithKline, you would have a better result in the cocktail treatment of HIV patients. So here I am working with helping this electronic medical record company and to kind of capture the clinical intent of the physicians. And then boom, we had this pandemic around, around the HIV pandemic. So we developed 5 major centers in the United States, and we started collecting the data. But we collected data around one single factor: the physician intent. Physician identify where these patients were, at what stage of HIV they were. So as they provided the treatment for that patients, they were able to then connect that to a staging of that patient. That descriptions became what we call clinical intent. And that's basically how, I survived through that journey and then really started capturing and then started selling that product, the terminology as a product, as one of my products. But really my expertise was electronic medical record. My expertise was building complex systems to collect data. So I developed a lot of data capturing, data analytic tools, but I was desperate. Disparate. I was disparate across different focus. And it was really in 2004 when things changed for me. And that's when Judy Faulkner from Epic, gave me a chance to actually look at my terminology for her physician in the Epic system, and we became then basically one of the terminology for the physician at point of care, and then later on we sold it to all the other electronic medical record companies. So then we became responsible for that dictionary.
So I remember some years ago, I had a doctor in Australia that I would visit once a year whenever I was there from the United States. And they were closing down their practice. And they said, we're going to, do you want to have everything on electronic records, or do you want us to give you a CD? I said, nothing on electronic records. I just want the CD. So should the public be worried about electronic health records?
By the way, Australia was very advanced during the 90s, late 90s, but they had some really good system there.
With electronic health records?
Yeah, they had some really nice clinical documentation. So one of the work that I'm doing right now, and so after I hired a CEO for IMO, and I decided to, after the last transaction, move out of IMO and purchase the company Leap of Faith Technology, I started looking at my last chapter of my dissertation. The last chapter of my dissertation was around this whole concept of how do you compare yourself to yourself? How do you identify the journey of your life with data? The journey of life with data, to me, is really probably the most important part of the future of medicine, because you really have if you look at it, you have 3 Venn diagrams. You have medical knowledge, you have the provider knowledge, and you have the patient. When they intersect, in the middle is where really the intersection is, which is your medical record.
Right.
Remember now, the knowledge is changing.
Yeah.
Physician also, is limited, and now hopefully with AI, they're going to take advantage of that knowledge change. But if they don't have your data, they will not know anything. So one of my experience was, one of my students came from Cook County. And she came to me and said, Dr. Naeymi-Rad, at this time I had my PhD. I said, Dr. Naeymi-Rad, you won't believe what happened. So what happened? He said, this informatics workup that we're doing at Cook County, we had this, homeless lady come, and she was kind of comatose, coming in and out. And she was every time she was coming out, she was hitting her thighs. And she said, we finally opened that, and in her thigh there was a plastic bag. And inside a plastic bag was a her chart, an informatics workup of last time was folded in there. At that time, the charts were all on paper. Nobody could find their charts in Cook County Hospital in the 80s. So this was that document saved her life. So my point to you is exact opposite.
Yeah.
I would say, don't worry about it, because at the end of the day, when you get to my age, in
I've
the
got nothing to
70s,
hide. I don't know. You just you worry about Big Brother.
Yeah, but there are people could abuse it.
Yeah.
Abusive is there, but you want to make sure that you always create a baseline for yourself, meaning that identify a clinician or somebody that you would go at least once a year or once an episode to create a comprehensive list of your data. So when the time comes, at least there's one visit that you can trust and the clinician can trust that you can share with them. That would be minimum thing that you should do. Because otherwise, 80 or 90% of the data that right now exists on the patients in the World Wide Web they're really garbage. A lot of them are garbage or duplicates or different. So being able to have one good record is very important.
Really important. How would the general public today see the interface between electronic health records? For I think you and I were talking a while ago about the prescription. Like one prescription, I might go to a doctor and they give me a prescription for something. Maybe it doesn't work for me. After 3 days, they would know that it's not working for me. So is that bringing in AI?
Well, again, one of the challenge here is that one of the work that we did, I worked with the Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago, where we worked on this company called Focus Health Solution. They were doing care management for self-insured employers.
Right.
And we were very successfully at that time, even though the telehealth were modem, we were able to manage the patients remotely, but having a 24/7 nurse manager to kind of became their companion.
Okay.
And when I'm saying companion, I mean companion in a way that they were not only had their medical record of the patients, but they also had the telehealth services that was coming, and they would know if the patient is really outside of some sort of boundaries. So we were very successful. For example, one of the case was children with asthma, and we had a peak flow meters for the children, so the children could actually measure, they keep themselves in the green all the time. And we kept the children from emergency room 90+% of the time, the children with asthma. So they knew when to take their inhaler during that process. And we then collected the data from those peak flow meters into their electronic medical record. So what I see right now is the patient goes see the doctor and they go home, or patient goes to the acute center and they get discharged. Technically speaking, there is no other intervention until they come back. So you get X amount of pills, you have to take all the pills. But what if it's not working? What if after 3 days it's not working? Okay, very rarely that connection exists between patient taking treatment and the physicians. And then furthermore, in many cases, we don't know if the patient is even adherent. They may even get the medication, but they may not take the medication. So I think where AI can come, we say large language model. I call large language model. We're going to large action model or large agent model, and then eventually large problem solving model. And what that means in my book is the agent model, to be able to look at the patient journey for that care as the order happens. If you give that journey instructions to an AI agent, then that AI agent can play the role of nurse manager that we had in the Focus Health solution to become the care management or care companion of that patient. Well, if you have one agent for one problem, one medication treatment, and if the patient is on multiple treatment, now you have multiple agents. And these AI agents, then if you gather the data from that and you bring another problem-solving agent, then the problem-solving agent can become a asset to the providers who's caring for the patient. So being able to understand the patient's problem, being able to understand comorbidity of the patients, and having that data and that journey to be collected, now the AI can play a major role as a companion and support in a team for the clinical team and the patient.
Is that happening now?
That is happening from many aspects. There are significant number of companies that actually using the companion or agent right now for mostly in administrative interactions. For example, your insurance, you don't technically need the insurance card and all the references. If you have agent can then tell you exactly what you have, and you can have agent automatically transfer that data to that clinic for your insurance policies and all that good stuff, and your co-pays and all that stuff. That is happening. And I would say we are doing some pilot right now on really looking at how this agent can be operationalized. But really, we have to be very, very careful to not look at the AI as advisor or as a decision-making entity,
right,
but make the AI to be a companion and allow the physician to make a decision, but provide additional data so those decisions are done, with a clear picture of the problems.
And how will the AI agent interface with the patient? Is it phone calls, like a robocall?
So the Latife technology that I purchased is basically Barbara Rapchak, who was the founder of Latife technology, is a genius. She was one of the first engineering school graduate from Notre Dame University, and I mean truly a profound scientist. And so she developed the SBIR grant, and she developed a program that she monitored the patients for medication compliance. And these were cancer patients which were taking a lot of medication. So she developed, this is like 9 years ago, she developed a phone service to actually connect with the patients. And her studies, which is scientifically a study that she has done, she demonstrated that patient went from 50% adherent to the treatment to 90+% adherent when there was intervention.
When there was an agent intervention.
In this case, it was human. It was her. I remember having a dinner with her. She has 4 or 5 phones to test things.
So she's calling. Did you take the tablets?
Yeah.
How are you?
Right. So that's what she was doing. So now what we're doing is that we say, okay, we could do something more. And there obviously there's a lot of things happening. And what my hopes are is that we use the personas using the Apple has done an amazing job with their new operating system, and it's truly very, very important to note that you can create an agent that actually call you and talks to you just like
a human being,
and then as you talk to it, there are these ambient technology that actually takes the speech between an agent and the patients and converts it into text, and that can be then natural language processing that can be coded with IMO. Now you suddenly bring that up to the point of care for the physician to make a final decision. So I think that is the future, and I think that's happening right now. And there are a lot of pilots, a lot of people really playing in that space. We put together a patent on that space because we believe that there is a, if you give a guidance to the agent, meaning that Alan Turing, which is the father of computer science, he said, I'm getting a little geeky here, but with the fourth state you can solve any problem. The fourth state in the care is that either you're adherent or you're not adherent, and there's an adverse event, or there is a alert to a provider to take action. So those are the 4 states of communications. So we're building a platform right now to make those 4 states to become actionable so people can innovate, but we don't develop those treatment modality or those journeys. We let the providers or providers team to develop those journeys, and each journey can become almost like a song. Because really, if that journey works for you, you just adopt that journey for your care. And then that agent becomes your companion.
So this is where we're going.
This is what I think is a logical way to use AI as a path companion.
Yeah. Before I moved on to Leap of Faith Technologies, I just wanted to go back to IMO. So you sold the company, 2012, was it?
2016.
Oh, 16, yeah. But your daughter is still the COO, Ivana, and Andre is the vice president, right? The president of corporate strategy. So they're still there. You're still a major shareholder, but you sold the company.
Right.
And what was the reason behind that?
Well, I mean, again, this year is 30th anniversary of IMO.
Is it?
Yes,
Wow.
it's been 30 years.
Congratulations.
And I think, there were a lot of angel investors, supporters during the early time of struggle. I mean, it was a really tough time. And as you know, a lot of companies kind of fail after 7 years. But, first 10 years was tough to really start to really focus on ontology and terminology and start selling that. And so it came to the point where I think I had responsibility for those people who I invested in me and trusted me. And I felt that the exit was the right time to make that happen. I will tell you one thing, is that a private equity, good private equity like Warburg Pincus, who purchased the company first and now which is THL, they are truly amazing. When you take a mission critical responsibility, you need the professionals. And I never had a professional investors. So when the opportunity came to bring the professional investor to really change the management, put together the right people in the right seats, I embraced it. And interesting enough, as soon as I embraced it, and as soon as I had a new CEO and a new management team, they promoted my kids. I did not do that, so I'm very honored that my kids are able to be qualified and be respected. So they're much smarter than I am. So.
that is something. That's great parenting and wonderful on their behalf, right?
I give the credit to their mom.
Yeah, of course. You are so good. You give the credit to mum on everything. I mean, I just love watching how much you love Teresa. I mean, really. Okay, so, I do want to ask you for our audience. So what advice would you have for somebody today, young people, who have come up with an idea like you had at college, and like what would they do with that if they don't have the funds? They've got a great idea, they've developed it, and then no funds.
Well, I mean, right now, for example, I'm running an internship right now with Illinois Tech, and I have 25 masters in computer science who are going through this internship that I'm doing. I call it See One, Do One, Build One. And what I'm doing is that I'm putting them in a group of fives and giving project with the goal and objective that project at the end is going to become a company or product that's going to be sold. So the journey, the creating the value proposition and a statement of who's going to be the user, and really looking at the business aspects of any product or any idea is very important. You have to validate it, and that validations. There's a lot of ideas. Don't stop your vision. Don't stop your dream. Pursue your dream, but be aware of the fact that some dreams, maybe the market is not ready for it, or maybe you're too early. Is always, if you can hold on to it and develop the infrastructure and support infrastructure, where when you started, at least you have a runway to be able to take off. You're going to be always in the ground, and so I would say. Identify the value, identify the market, and then be aware of one thing that I changed my life was this book, Good to Great, and a hedgehog concept. You want to be able to be passionate about what you're doing, and you have to be best at it, and it has to make money. Okay, sometimes two out of three is not bad, but you have to have somebody else to come up with the other one. But without the passion, and without you really chasing something that you may not be as happy.
Yeah, and do you think it's it's helpful to have an MBA?
Business degree or partner in a business degree. I would say I had an MBA, but I would say bringing a right CEO into your organization. Bas Plummer, which was my CEO that I brought in early 2000, and he was an MBA graduate from Stanford. He was instrumental. And what I did with my company, we were small, but then we suddenly had this mission critical responsibility across all the electronic health record in the US, especially when the ICD-10 came, where we went from ICD-9, which is International Disease Classification version 9, to ICD-10. They went from 50,000 to 90,000 codes. So now we have to make that change, and some of our changes, because we had 5 million code mapping to those 90,000. So we had almost, sometime a release had 1 million changes. So to really make that organization happen, you needed an operational person for a successful business, you needed a business person, and you needed a strategy. So I had a operational person, and operational person was things that happen day to day. If the client has a problem, you have to resolve it quickly because you're mission critical. And then you have, what I call tactical person, which was my CFO, and he will look at the annual number, making our cash, our budget is there, everything is there. And then you have a strategic, which is the long term, 3 or 4 years. So you really have to think about the business as not just making a cash tonight. You have to really look at today, look at an annual event, and you have to look at a 3 years trajectory.
Yeah, it's not easy. What is it, 70%? It's over 70% of businesses eventually fail. Let's move on to Leap of Faith Technologies. What is that?
Well, Leap of Faith Technology, as I mentioned to you, this was the company that Barbara Rapchat started, and I purchased it mostly to try to really go to my the end chapter of my dissertation. As you know, I had to focus on ontology, which was in my first 4 chapters of my dissertation. And so my last chapters, I mostly was on pattern recognition and neural network and decision support stuff. And I really wanted to really work on this, what happened with the Focus Health Solution, care management, what happened with the HIV project. I knew that I want to be there. I want to really have some effect in the outcome. Barb has done that. Most of her programs was patient engagement, really working with patients, different program in the cancer registry, working on medication adherence, things that when you look at the portfolio of her research that she did in her company was all patient engagement. So and she was going to close the company and retire. I said, well, wait a minute, you're a genius, you have done all this stuff, you're a role model for the future women scientists. I want to make sure the stuff that you have done others can see. So I bought the asset with the purpose of actually making sure each one of her research is still a potential opportunity of companies. So I'm looking at that as an asset of services. Yeah. And so what is happening now is that, but I started to focus on comprehensiveness of data. When I mentioned to you a baseline, how you compare yourself to yourself. Mm-hmm. So these days with genetics, and I would tell you the COVID really did a number on all of us. And I think I invested a significant amount of money to create a normalized genome repository, which is a JAC service, is now part of HL7 standards. Then, so I had the genetics, I had electronic medical already because I've done that several times. And now I'm doing a social determinant because I'm finding out that many patients may just be cared for by just bringing food to them. You don't need the full genome, you don't need all the good stuff. So there's many ways to care for the patients, than really going crazy on electronic medical record. Yeah. So I'm hoping that I'm using Leap of Faith, and me and Teresa are using our funds. We have family funds. We're trying to support the startups in the space of patient and engagement. And I think having Leap of Faith as the foundation, as a vehicle to deliver that has been our mission right now.
And so we talked about AI. Let's talk about your patents. You've got 12, but you do have an AI patent related to cancer.
So basically what we did, when I did that genetics, comprehensive genetic, what I felt that you really need to create a digital twin of yourself. Right. Digital twin, in my vision, has been really nothing to do with identifying other patient like you. I was focusing on only me. Here how I looked a year ago, how do I look today?
Right.
And can I compare myself to myself and find out the changes that's going on? And so that's what my one new patent that I did. And the other patent that I did is around this adherent object four-state automata of how do you create a platform for engaging patients. But most of my patents are, before that, it was on terminology and electronic medical record.
And what about your publications? You have like 50 or something, don't you?
Yeah, so when I was in academia, I published a lot of stuff. And then when I came out of academia, I developed this techniques of actually generating the patient education at the electronic at the point of care. What happened? The patient education used to be brochure before given to people,
Right.
and what I did, I talked to the company who was doing that. I said, "Give me that in electronic form. Let me index it and let me connect it to my terminology. And so when a doctor sees it, they can just click on it and print it for them." So we did that. Well, wouldn't you know, they went ahead and patented that. Okay, and then suddenly I suddenly realized when you publish, it's one thing, but when you patent, at least you can protect your
You
patent.
protect it. Yeah.
So we protect. So I do the patent mostly to protect the path of innovations, so nobody can stop their journey. And that's why I stopped publishing after I left medical school. I focused all my
Oh,
work
that's
on.
when you stopped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you working on at the moment that's really exciting for you?
Be honest with you, try to work with the universities that gave me the chance in Illinois. I'm trying to work with them and try to really help. There's no way the ideas that I have that I'm be able to, be able to get to final stage of those ideas in my lifetime. So my hopes are to, empower the next generation workforce, and truly, with this AI evolution that's coming in, I feel that there's a lot of changes going on.
Yeah.
And if I can somehow use our resources to guide and help the next generation to kind of ride this wave of opportunities, because it's going to be a new wave of jobs that we never knew existed before. And I don't know it either, be honest with you. I'm just trying to be participating in supporting the people who know.
So are you thinking that AI is going to contribute to the medical industry without taking away jobs, or do you think that it's going to replace people?
Remember now, I view each human as AI. Okay, and I always
Right.
view when you sleep at night, when you have a dream, there's nothing but hallucination, just like AI is doing hallucinations. So
Yeah.
I have always been thinking in that role model, to the point that when my kids were in my wife's womb, we always used to play music to them, always talk to them, and because we wanted to get them prepared. So I don't know, but I think we are in a very unique trajectory, and that trajectory, in my mind, is. I wouldn't be surprised. There are going to be kids who are at the age of 12 years old will finish their PhD because they could get on a given topic and go all the way because now they have intelligent tutors attached to them. So what my hopes are is, me and Teresa are looking at two different group of workforce development. One in area information systems and decision support within the healthcare, and other one in area how can we help the current teachers to become effective in this transformation, because their students know more than they do. Can we prepare them? I think we need to invest in those teachers and prepare them. And I think the education is going to change. When the education changes in this next phase, we're going to see some unique opportunities. So I don't know if I would say AI is going to replace jobs. I would just say AI would just create a new journey of life that we didn't know existed.
Yeah, and taking on the role, as you say, of being an agent and communicating with the patient. That's not even happening now, so it's not taking anybody's job away, right?
But it will. But what I would say, the doctors who use AI will replace the doctors who are not using AI.
Oh, not you. Yeah. How is AI training students?
Well, didn't you just tell me that you did some?
Oh, yeah.
But you should tell
Oh,
me.
no.
You just did that yourself.
Training student. No,
Well, that's a
well,
training.
So here's what I was telling Frank. I was telling Frank that everybody that I interview, I spend 2 days. I'm a serious researcher. I listen to every interview that they've ever done. I read every article on them, their Wikipedia, their whatever. You know, so many people I know, but I read and I'm like, 15 years I've known them and I didn't really know them. Anyway, so I do all of that, and then, you know, it's a lot of work. And then I formulate all my questions and make sure they're all in order. And then I have to figure out how am I going to introduce them and condense it and make it, you know. So I got to the point I had so many interviews ahead of me, bang, 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 bang. I thought I don't have 2 days left for everybody. So I thought I'm going to try AI. I didn't even know how to do it. I just pulled up Gemini, boom, it popped up. And I said, write a brief introduction for a podcast I'm doing on Dr. Frank Naeymi-Rad, for example. I didn't do it on you, but I learned after you. And I couldn't believe it. It just came up, 3 drafts, boom, 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 like within seconds, and they were fabulous. So I cut and paste, and then I, you know, moved the words around because I've been a writer in my life. So then I go, oh, this is too good. So I said, give me some questions for an interview. So they pull everything like that. Instead of me going into Google, pulling up all the different articles, it's the same thing. I just changed. I just saved so much time.
So I think so the way one of the projects we're doing with Northwestern and Rosalind Franklin right now is that many medical students are going through a training right now, and they have these simulators. Meaning simulators is like they identify these cases, and then they have actors come act it, so students can work and ask right questions. So that is an example of where a simulator. You can take the problem and actually have AI generate the case. The providers now review the case, so their process of creating just like what you did, creating that test is shortened. Mm-hmm. But then you give that to AI and ask it to create a persona that acts as the patient, so the students can practice. So now suddenly, that practicing is really the way you should look at it, is that practicing is a multidimensional, because at every step of that Q&A, they can start asking the universe of knowledge and preparing themselves. So I think, you know, the speed of learning is going to accelerate, and I think the quality of learning is going to accelerate, and that's what I would say, the way I see it. I mean, I'm sure there are others.
I think it's going to be awesome. Anybody who says it's garbage in and garbage out, I've heard a lot of people say it really isn't. I mean, I ask all the time questions. It's fantastic.
But it is really how is at the end is how it's trained. Okay, so supervised training is really the best way of looking at the AI. So there are going to be a lot of different AIs, and I think each AI is going to have some sort of characteristics. And I think for healthcare, for them to trust it, they're going to have to trust. They will only trust the one which does not. And this is very important, that is not, or they're assured that it's not hallucinating, because they want to make sure that what comes out is correct.
Oh yeah, like I move all my stuff around and I rewrite bits, but you know, you get a lot of facts that you can play with, right? Are you aware of any medical breakthroughs coming through, or any latest technology that you might be aware of that's in the works as it relates to the medical industry?
There's so much. I mean, there's so much. Be honest with you, what I try to do is that I try to engage the leaders to come and give lectures to the interns that I have right now, and because I am my work, what I did in 90s around neural net, it was clear to me that as the knowledge expands, it solves things that you couldn't possibly solve yourself. So I think the biggest thing that I see right now is this number of parameters that you can pass to AI. When I mentioned to you your medical record, you said, Frank, should I keep my medical record? The fact that if you have a comprehensive medical record, detail everything, even the genetics, imagine that as a prompt to AI. So now suddenly
I know.
you're creating something different. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, that to me is the big evolutionary change, because the patients are going to become far more sophisticated about their own care
Right.
and their own health.
Yeah.
That was not possible before.
Yeah. I remember one time you were in my home office, and I was telling you, oh my God, look at all my printout. I've kept my whole life of everything, my medical folder. And you said, oh, Teresa will be able to scan all that and get it all on there for you. I said, oh my gosh, it'll be way too hard. When you come to visit me in Sydney, I think I'm going to get her to help me with it.
Oh, there's a company that I have that's invested in. It's called Abstractive Health. Abstractive Health does exactly that.
Oh.
And what they do, they take any PDF, all that stuff, they codify it, they map it, and they summarize it for your doctor. So when you see your doctor, doctors have a nice summary. And then
Really?
Yes. And then when the summary comes, the doctor can click on any of those stuff that was extracted. It takes them right to that PDF so they can read it. So imagine how nice it's going to be for that doctor to
So
know all about
you bought that company?
I didn't buy it. I'm invested.
Oh, you
in it.
invested. Okay, so how do I give them all my stuff?
Your doctor has to negotiate.
You go through your doctor.
Yeah. Doctors have to be in charge.
That would involve getting a doctor. Okay. Okay, I wanted to move on to philanthropy. You and Teresa, unbelievable philanthropists, always, I mean, you're involved on so many boards for starters, but your philanthropy in both communities, in Chicago, in Illinois, Chicago, and here in the Napa Valley, and I'm sure other places, is remarkable, and overseas and through the Vatican. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your philosophy on philanthropy and some of the...
So Teresa and I believe that, we want to give, for every dollar we give, we want to bring $10 value for those communities that we're trying to support and help. And obviously, the dollars that are connected with our time and our knowledge are by far the most valuable. That's what I'm doing right now with IIT, with these interns, because now I have 25 knowledgeable kids that are going to be very valuable for our community and for our community of the United States. And in here in Napa is really all about empowering the leaders that are here. I mean, we have amazing leaders here from St. Helena Hospital, and Steve Herbert. I mean, he's really, truly and Alicia, from Olay Health. You see these leaders, and you say to yourself, how can I help them to really do better? And then you look at the Festival Napa Valley. I mean, that leadership, they work so hard, and so we really at the same time is that everything that we give here is bringing value to the community here. Everything we give in Illinois is trying to really give back to Illinois, because Illinois give us what we have. We don't give much, but in volume as a whole is significant, but not at the same level that others do. But we feel that if we're going to give with a purpose, not just not knowing what's going on. I think if we can do that, it means a lot to those people that we're trying to support.
But you also help with the church, putting solar panels on the roof and working on that.
Well, we haven't put together solar panel there, but the church was really more, me and Teresa, before we came to Napa, we had an audience with Pope, and this is during a Tubbs fire. And
the Tubbs fire of 2017.
2017.
I remember.
Yeah. So I went to say, Papa, I was shaking his hand. I said, Papa, please pray for people in Napa. And he said, well, I pray for people in Napa, but I also pray for those vines and give respect to all those workers that come there. I felt that right after that we bought our first property in Napa. That's the first thing we got introduced to Napa. And since then, we've been really working with Teresa's cousin, who is a Secretary General of St.
Vincent de Paul.
St. Vincent de Paul, and he came and blessed the property that we bought, and we've been working with the Father Mora at the St. John's the Baptist Church to really bless the hand of the workers before the harvest. We feel, and I'll tell you, it is so emotional seeing 2,000 plus workers come to the church, get their hands blessed, And then we put together a support for a father to really put together entertainment for them and bring their families together so they feel that they're part of this community. I would say that's probably the most enjoyable experience that I have, to see the families together and feeling that they're part of this community and they're being respected. Because I remember the first time me and Father Tomaj that came from Vatican here, we were, we had the food, we served the people, and we were cleaning the garbage, and then they're trying to get up and help us. So no, you are our guests. This is our job to help you.
I remember that.
So that was, it's really very enjoyable to do that. You feel like it gives you that joy of life, what life means, and family.
You are so full of love. Listen, I love, every time I go to your home for dinner or you come to my home, I come out just so inspired, and I'm like, oh, my brain is so stretched. I love it. We always have the most amazing conversations, and you're always telling me about what you and Teresa are doing to advance other people and to support other people, and boards that you sit on, and all your ideas, your mind. I love every minute I spend with you guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I am so grateful that you took the time. I know you're going off tomorrow.
Yes, thank you very
I'm
much.
looking forward to seeing you again. It might be in Sydney.
No problem.
No problem.
Yeah, I love the restaurants there.
Oh, I've got some great Middle Eastern restaurants to take you to. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you next time.